What do you do when you've got a gun that's got one of the best striker fire triggers available? You screw with it. Hey guys, Worker, welcome back to the bench. Today we are going to be doing a project on the P10C. I've talked about this a couple of times. You guys still haven't seen the review for it, but that's alright, it'll come around sometime. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing the trigger. Now, we are not going to be replacing the trigger with the normal HB Industries trigger that you've seen in countless P10Cs thus far. We are replacing this with a new offering from Suarez. Now, if you remember, I have a Suarez trigger in my 19, and now we are going to be putting the Suarez trigger in my P10C. Now, this is just the trigger shoe, and it does not come with a spring or anything like that. So we are only going to be changing kind of the profile of the trigger shoe itself. The first thing I want to do, though, is I'm going to grab a baseline of our stock trigger. Now, I typically totally forget to do this, so I'm glad that I'm remembering this time beforehand. I need to get this down far enough that we don't mess with our trigger at all on our pull. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to be doing two different things. We're going to be measuring the pull weight, and we're going to be marking where the pull actually starts to build and where the break is. So let's go ahead and get our distances first. So first we're going to be doing where the stock trigger sits, and I'm going to be going by the front of the stock trigger. So the front of this mark is the front of the stock trigger. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull back. There is the stock trigger wall, and the rest of the way, we've got maybe 1/8 of an inch between those two, and then about 3/8 of an inch of pre-travel. Let's grab a pull weight real quick. And our pull weight is right at 5 pounds. All right, let's go ahead and pull this bad boy apart and start pulling parts off. Now, to pull this apart, what we're gonna do is gonna make sure it's clear, pull the trigger, pull the slide back slightly, pull down the takedown wings, and press the slide forward and off. Now we're just gonna set the slide aside for now, and we're gonna be working with the frame. What we need is a block and a punch kit with a hammer. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our takedown plate. So the takedown plate does have a T-shaped pin that goes right down inside this hole. We need to make sure that that doesn't come out. So as we're taking this plate out, we want to make sure that we cover that with something just to make sure, sorry, this thing is a mess, just to make sure that it doesn't get lost. So we're going to push down our takedown plate, and we're going to slide it over to one of the sides. It can be taken out either the right or the left side, it doesn't matter. There we go. Okay, you can just push down and give it a good push, and then it'll click, and you can see that it's kind of off center now. So now we can go ahead and slide that the rest of the way out, kind of wiggle it over to the side, move it down a little bit more because we got to get it down and out of that hole, and keep our finger over it. There's our takedown plate, and right here is that little detent. So we can go ahead and pull that little detent and the spring out, and there they are, all one piece. You can set those both aside. So the order that we're going to be doing these is the front pin, the trigger pin, and then these two pins back here in the back. So let's go ahead and open up our punch kit. We need our hammer in our punch kit. We're going to be using, let's do a 1/16 of an inch punch up here in the front. Not sure that's going to be long enough. It is not. Well, it'll work. Alright, so let's go ahead and start taking these out. Crap, that is stuck in there pretty freaking tight. Heavier of a hammer, help us out with this. Holy crap. This pin is a total pain in the rear. There we go. So the roll pin punch is out. Let's go ahead and get these other ones out. Okay. Trigger pin comes out super easy because it's just held in with spring tension. And we got to pull these back too, which are roll pins, which means we need a roll pin punch. Let's try this one. And those come out way easier as well. Okay, that one is all the way out. Now these two rear pins are identical in size. The front pins are not, obviously, because they are different types of pins. So while I was tapping that out, the front frame insert came out, and you've got this J spring here that's the spring for the slide release. That just needs, there's like a same J channel down in there. Just make sure that stays put. I'm gonna set that aside and continue getting this pin out. Now I've got that pin out. Sorry, I've got to do this off camera with the smacking of the pins, but it'll be kind of quiet here. Now I can pull the rear striker release section and the front trigger portion out. Then I can go ahead and get out our Suarez trigger shoe. So what we're gonna do is we've got a pin right here that needs to come out. Now it is a slight press fit pin, so we should just be able to push that pin out with a little bit of effort. It comes right out. Let's go ahead and take our old trigger shoe off and put our new trigger shoe on, and it should slide in kind of using the same amount of pressure, because again, it is a floating pin, so we're gonna make sure that it's nice and in there. Do need to push it a little bit just to make sure it's in there, flush on both sides, and it should stay put without walking out when you're shaking it around like that. And at this point, we are done and ready to put things back together. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and slide our trigger group back in, rear section back in. So in the rear section, there is a small spring-loaded portion right here that you need to push in before you can get that section back down in there. So push that in and it'll fall right down in. Next thing, let's go ahead and put these rear two pins back in before we start working on our front ones. Man, I'm making this thing a mess. Let's go ahead and get those back in. I'm really liking this front one way more than the back one. Okay. All right, back one's back in. Next thing we need to do is put our front insert back in, and again, we are gonna make sure this J-spring is in this little groove that it's in, and we're just gonna push that down and in somewhere. There we go. And as we push that down and in, we're gonna kind of get everything lined up. Should be able to see kind of down through that hole and get lined up. So next thing we're gonna do is we're going to put in our solid pin. Now the best thing for the solid pin, this groove right, focus, this groove right here on the solid pin is actually going to hook onto that J-spring. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work it in from the right side. As we work it in from the right side, we can kind of shift our trigger around, get it lined up, maybe. And with that all lined up, we'll be able to toss that pin through. This thing is just not wanting to go in. Let's check something. Before we do that, let's do this. Let's go ahead and pull our block back out. Alright, so let's just see if this will fit through our trigger. Let's see if that's where this is hanging up. And it is. Well, Gabe, we got a problem here, bud. So, Mr. Suarez, here's our problem, is your hole in your trigger is not large enough for the pin in a P10C to actually go through. And despite this saying installed by a qualified gunsmith, this is a striker fire pistol, my friend. Let's pull things back apart. Take a gander what we got inside here. So I got that pulled out so I can pull the trigger group back out, and let's just try to dry fit this. And that, sir, is not a properly sized hole. Caliper time. The pin on my P10C is 0.137. The hole on the Suarez trigger, 0.136. Let's double check this. 3.7. So even if I get this through, that is going to be tight. Let's see what the stock sizing is. 141. So we've got 5 thou in the stock trigger shoe here. We have an interference fit of up to 1/2 thou on our Suarez. So we got some issues, Mr. Suarez. I will give you a call and we will see if we can resolve this. So we are at a bit of a standstill here. Our 137 dowel is not going to fit through a 136 hole. That's just not, that doesn't work. So, I don't know what I'm going to do now. So that's pretty much it there. Son of a bitch. Now I'm just in a crappy mood. I was going to be all happy now getting this thing done tonight. Now I'm just in a shitty mood. Hey, I'll bet you 20 bucks this will go through there. Ta-da! Okay guys, so it's the next day. I've been talking to Suarez a little bit, and they assured me that what I'm seeing here is just the buildup of the anodization. Now, I don't think that anodizing this is really going to take up that. I mean, it's 5 thousandths, and anodization, I can't talk today, should only take up, it should be considerably less than that. But all the same, we are going to go ahead and try to clean this up a little bit. The tactic that I'm going to use to clean this up, we only need a couple of thousandths of an inch on this thing, because as I said, the pin that we need to get through there, so the pin that's in the gun is 0.137. The hole in here is 0.136, so we're 1,000th interference, which is 100% manageable by cleaning it up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some sandpaper. This is 1500 grit. It's just the first thing I grabbed, and it's not really that important what the grit is because of kind of what we're doing here. And let's go ahead and take a strip of this. I'm gonna go ahead and let's do less than this too, because I don't want a lot of thickness on here, because what we're gonna do is we are going to wrap this around a drill bit. This is a 1/8 inch drill bit, so 0.125, and we're going to add our sandpaper here to increase. That's gonna be too much, I think. Yep, that's too much. So we need less than that. Just want to get a little bit of increased thickness here around our drill bit so that we can get it in here and start spinning it. Maybe we need a smaller drill bit to get. Grab a different drill bit. Let's go with this one. This is I don't know, it doesn't even say on there, but this is one step down in my kit from a 1/8 inch drill bit. All we're doing here is we are going to be cleaning up the inside of this a little bit with our drill bit. Here we go. Because we just need enough. And then I'm just gonna spin it. Sorry, I've kind of been working over to the side there. I'm just gonna spin it to get that anodization out from inside there. Hopefully we can open this up enough to the point where our pin goes through. Because again, we're only looking at a couple of thousandths on this thing that we need to open it. Okay, so that's clean. Let's grab our pin, see if our pin goes through. No, we still need more. That's all right. Go ahead and go up a little bit more sandpaper on here, and do the same thing. We'll basically just continue to work our way up till we've gotten the hole wallered out enough to be able to get our pin in there. If this one doesn't get it opened up enough, I'm going to switch to a slightly more aggressive grit on my sandpaper. No, we are still not in. Let's get a little bit more aggressive. There we go. Some 600 grit. That'll just help get a little bit more of that material away at a time. Technically, I could probably drill this out, but I really don't want, my drill press isn't the best drill press, and I don't want to run the risk of elongating the hole. So we're not gonna run to the drill press. We only need a couple of thousandths. There we go. A little bit. If you spin like this with something that's nice and cylindrical like a drill bit, it should auto center and not waller out your hole unevenly anywhere. So we were at about 0.136, now 139. Unfortunately, that is still not enough for a nice fit on our pin here. Our pin must be eccentric a little bit, so let's keep going. That's good though, that means we have opened it up. This is probably where the install by Real Gunsmith portion comes into their instructions. Go ahead and measure it really quick. There we go, 140. That is pretty close to what our stock sizing was. See if we can get our pin in now. There, we're starting to get some leeway. Let's go ahead and do at least one more. Come on, go in. Okay, toss that to the side, get this paper out of here. Okay. Alright, so now it's looking like we will be able to get this thing. Kind of want one more. This is kind of a pain in the butt for what should be a plug-and-play part here. I know technically all guns are different and finicky, but I feel like you really shouldn't have to do this much screwing around with a striker-fired trigger group. But I guess that's just me. Alright guys, so here's the deal. I just got an email from Suarez, one of the guys over there, about the undersized trigger hole. So I got a hold of them about this, and in doing a little bit of searching in, they found out that their hole did end up undersized. Now, they had been installing most of these by themselves, doing some fine fitting, but it does seem like the holes were undersized. So they are making a modification to their design. They're upping the hole size a little bit. They are reaming out the current holes to make sure that they fit. And so they are taking care of the issue. So from now on, the triggers should fit substantially easier than mine did. So kudos to Suarez for taking that on and going ahead and fixing that issue and getting back a hold of me to let me know the update. They are also sending me a couple of triggers to replace the trigger that I had. We will end up seeing how those fit, and I will give you guys an update as soon as I can on those. Now back to the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we got now after a little bit more cleanup. It is getting smoother and smoother, but I'm still not happy with that fit. Let's see what the fit is on the stock one really quick. Grab that, pop that pin out, just because we're not going to use that again. I mean, this is the fit on the stock one. Let's check and see what our sizing is now. 140. Not gone up a whole lot. Well, better than it was. Let's go ahead and let's get everything back together and see just how much of a pain in the rear this possibly could be. It may increase trigger weight, I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and clean up our workspace here a little bit because I have made a royal mess, and put things back together. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our striker release assembly, get our new trigger shoe on there, and get our pin. I'm going to push our pin back in. Again, that pin should be tight, but not like super tight, not overly tight to the point where it won't just slide right in there. Should slide in but not come out when you wiggle. Let's go ahead and get this back into our frame. Remembering that we've got this detent back here that we need to push in to be able to get the rear insert down into the frame. Now we can put the 2 roll pins in. These can go in either order. I'm going to put the front one in first because on mine, the front one goes in easy and the rear one does not. And these are roll pins. They're actually spring pins, but let's go ahead and grab our roll pin punch. Same concept. Okay. Get those back in. Now we can put our front lock block assembly back in. Now when you do this, you need to slide the slide release down underneath the ejector. Then we're going to push down and into the frame. That should line up all of our components here. Should now be able to, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to insert from the left side. I'm going to slightly push through as I wiggle the trigger around, and then I should be able to grab the trigger, push in, and now we should be able to tap it rest of the way in. Now our new trigger is in. Now with this Suarez trigger, you can see that our trigger is significantly flatter than it was with the Glock trigger. So now we can go ahead and grab our front roll pin. We're going to get that guy in. Again, this guy is a pain in the rear. So let's go ahead and grab our roll pin punch for that one again. Let's grab the bigger one and get that guy pounded in there. Okay. Let's keep going a little bit. We got some more space on the other side to take up. There we go. Okay, that roll pin is in. Now we can put our T-block back in, as well as our slide catch. So with our T-block, there is only one way that it's going to go in here. Let me zoom in again. So you can see right here, the T-block is this shape, and it's going to go right down in pretty much the only spot it can. Right down in there like that. Going to need something to press down on the T-block with as we put our slide catch in. Now, this is directional. We've got a little bit of a focus. This is directional. We've got a chamfer here, and this chamfer needs to be going towards the barrel in this orientation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this in from one side, and right as we get to the T-block, I'm going to go ahead and push the T-block down. We can get our release worked up and over the T-block, and let's go ahead and move my thingy to the side, and then we can just push it straight in, and it will pop in. So that's pretty simple. So now with that all put back together, let's go ahead and stick some drops of oil down in here just for happy camper status. Back here, go ahead and put our slide on. Now when we put our slide on, we want to make sure that our trigger is all the way back, because if it's forward, things are going to catch weird. And there we go. We're catching on tape. So you can see here that our new trigger sits significantly behind the stock trigger. There we go. This is kind of hard to see. So our new trigger sits significantly behind the stock trigger. Here's where the stock trigger sat. Here's where the new trigger sits. It still breaks and resets at the same point, but we've got a significantly less pre-travel. Now let me go ahead and pull my tape off so it can move freely, because the new trigger is pinching on the tape a little bit. It's kind of hard to get that tape on here completely flat. Tape is off. me check it out here. And we're finished. Let's go ahead and check one last thing. We need to check our pull weight and see if that's gone up at all. It may have actually gone up a little bit, but let's double check that. It's right at 6 pounds. So we went up almost a pound, and I have a feeling that's because of the interference with this pin. Everything else feels pretty good, but we are going to take this to the range. I'm actually going to go right now. We're going to see just how well this works. Okay, guys, so I just made it back from the range from a function test, and this thing works awesome. The reset is super short. So, really quick, we are empty here. The brake is like a little bit crisper than stock. So if you watch here, so here's our resting trigger. There's our take up. There's the brake. Very minimal over travel on this thing. I mean, we're talking maybe an 1/8 of an inch in over travel. And then that same over travel is the reset. Pow, there's the reset. Nice, tactile, audible. It's just this, I'm really impressed with this trigger. So you can see with this one, when I depress the trigger and pull back, the trigger brake is actually, the trigger is just shy of vertical, which is how it should be. And then when it brakes, it goes vertical. If you guys remember my Glock 19 trigger, my complaint about the Suarez trigger on the Glock 19 is that that brake isn't vertical. The trigger is slightly angled back when it actually brakes, and that causes issues as far as consistency and shot placement goes. Because you're no longer pulling straight back on your trigger. Now you're pulling back, and it's actually moving the barrel in a slightly different way than you would think that it would move it. It's not, I mean, it's still a more accurate trigger than I can shoot, but it was just something that I wasn't a big fan of it. Lend itself to a little bit more trigger bite too. With this one, I do not have that issue. This trigger is so close to the trigger guard down there that the tape that I had on here to mark where the original trigger was actually got in the way of the trigger pull. So now that that's gone, everything works great. The one concern I do have is because of the press fit of our trigger pin up here that goes through the frame and the trigger. Now, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this, but if you watch that pin, can you see it? That pin is rotating in the frame. So stock, that pin doesn't rotate in the frame. The stock trigger shoe actually pivots around that pin, but now since it's a press fit inside our trigger, now the pin is actually rotating inside the frame. It's not a whole lot of rotation, but it's putting wear in a place where is not supposed to be on this firearm. So we'll see kind of how that does. I know the reason they did it. They did it because on the early P10Cs, this pin was walking out and they were having issues with that. Well, that's not an issue anymore. My pin hasn't walked out in the hundreds of rounds that I've put through it prior to this. But, you know, I would suggest opening that hole up a little bit to Suarez. With a little bit of work, it does go in. I'm assuming that's why they say it's got to be done by a qualified gunsmith, which I am not. So, we will get back with you guys later. We'll put some more rounds through this thing, and I'll come back later with a review to tell you guys what my final thoughts are on this, the Suarez trigger from my P10C. Well, that's it for this time, guys. Installation and the first shots on our Suarez P10C trigger. We've hopefully got a lot of cool content coming up this year, guys. We're starting a new year. I've got a lot of plans in the works. We're going to have a lot of carry compares done. We've got a lot of new gun models, a lot of modifications planned, and I'm hoping that we can get that to you guys really soon here. Keep rolling these things out and keep giving you guys content that you can use. Remember, we've got a live chat every other Thursday. We do different topics. I usually post up what the topic's going to be a couple of days before the live chat or so. So keep an eye out for that. Remember, guys, if you found this video useful, go ahead and hit like and subscribe down below. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, and please comment, because any thumbs up and comments and interaction that you guys have with my video drives my videos in the YouTube algorithm. YouTube doesn't look at keywords anymore, or the phrases that I put down, or the hashtags and links. What they look for is interaction with you guys. So please, like and subscribe. Remember, I appreciate every one of you, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.